Hello everyone, welcome back to the vlog. It's been a while since I created an entry. My apologies, I just didn't feel like really making stuff. I'm just kind of absorbing the last week of coming back down to elevation and all that. So yeah, this is just a big recap of the 2 vacations I took, which were also doubling as training camps, and how they've impacted Chicago Marathon training up to this point, in addition to future plans leading up to Sunday, October 11th, which is when I plan on doing the virtual Chicago Marathon. And I have some updates on that as well. So, without further ado, let's get started. I took some notes. So with that in mind, first thing we start off with is where we were 3 weeks ago? No, yeah, 3 weeks ago. We started the trip in Big Sky, Montana, which is about, I'm going to say, 7,300 feet of elevation. Of course, I went out there with a couple of friends, just had a good time. Whenever we had some downtime, which was typically really early in the morning, we would just go for a run. So most of the time it was just me going for my run, but my little cousin would sometimes come along if he was feeling good, if he wasn't feeling injured from activities and stuff and whatnot. So that was a good start to elevation acclimation, or to acclimating to higher elevation. Definitely no complaints on my end from that side. I think it went really well. It was the first time I seriously tried mountain running, as in Big Sky, the big mountain there at the ski resort is world renowned, or at least renowned in the United States as being one of the highest skiing peaks in the US. So running up that mountain with the time given to me was quite fun. I never made it up to the actual peak, but one day I will return and I will get it done. I believe it's Lone Mountain. That's what it's called. One day we're going to return to Lone Mountain and we're going to get to the top of that peak one way or another. So that was Big Sky. We were out there for 5 days. None of the runs were past a 10K. Realistically, just doing light runs and light activity was enough just to really feel the burnout there. Yeah, I had not a whole lot of time to run 1 to 2 hours a day. Most of the time it was about 40 minutes was good, enough. And one time we dropped elevation just slightly and we went to the Big Sky village town where there was an actual trail that we could run, and that was my longest run there. That was about a 10K, maybe about 6.5 miles. The point mostly with running in Big Sky was acclimating and prepping for Silverthorne, Colorado, which was our next destination following Big Sky. So when our party split in Bozeman, my little cousin and I, we flew out to meet my family in Silverthorne, which is at 9,000 feet elevation, and that's when I really wanted to get these workouts started. So, of course, jumping from 7,200 to 9,000 feet elevation is not the largest jump. If you can handle one, you can probably acclimate to the other fairly quickly. That's a lie. So, whatever I was doing in Big Sky, it helped slightly with Silverthorne, but not as much as I thought it would. So, the trick with Silverthorne also, which hasn't happened the last 3 years I've done this, is that we brought our road bikes out to Silverthorne this time around, which was actually a really brilliant move for more than one reason. The first, obviously, was that acclimating to 9,000 feet elevation is done easier on a bike, where you can do some kind of cross-training activity, and it's not as intense depending on where you're biking, right? And of course, with this combined practice on Zwift, biking was also not very hard, not very difficult. I wasn't biking a lot on the real roads in Chicago very often, more or less most of the time on Zwift because, whatever. One of the big issues that started in Big Sky that ultimately turned really fatal during the Silverthorne training block was the dry alpine climate. This is basically where I started developing a really severe blister at the bottom of one of my feet. It started getting really infected as well, so the point here was just to contain the infection, just take it easy on some days. And this is where obviously biking came in handy, because when I was biking, I wasn't really pushing on this blister, so I can get away with a little bit more while I had my foot bandaged up, right? So This blister did ultimately develop from my new pair of Pegasus 37s. I don't blame the shoe necessarily for causing the blisters, but it was part of the problem. There was a lot of rubbing at first before the shoe was officially broken into, whether it be from not tying the shoe properly, whether it be the synthetic socks. But ultimately, that combined with the dry weather ultimately caused some blister development. And you also felt it in your lips too, because your lips were chapping. So you knew that the skin was naturally not getting moisturized from the humidity, or if you were not drinking enough water, it would show ultimately in on your body, depending on what activity you were doing. So that became a real issue early on into the Silverthorne training camp. But lucky me, I packed a brand new pair of shoes with me that I broke for the second time out in Silverthorne, and that is the Next Percents in this particular color scheme. And I have a history with using Next Percents. I love the shoe. Ironically enough, this is the most comfortable shoe to run in when I had my blisters. So for like 2 days in a row, I ran in Next Percents, and it felt like I was cheating again, running with a carbon plate shoe, putting in anywhere from 640s to 630s at in altitude or in high altitude environments. But at the same time, if I'm avoiding pain from pushing my foot on the blisters where I'm at a crunch for time, being that I'm only in Colorado for a week, you should take advantage of those moments where you can. It'd be a different story if I'm in Colorado for like a month or 3, but if I'm only there for a week, then I better do whatever I can to, simply get the training done. So the highlights out there, of course, it was partially a family vacation, so I wasn't training the whole time, but we did do 2-a-days fairly often. One of the days when I chose not to run and more or less go bike, we ended up hiking like 11 miles, and I was wearing my Infinity Reacts, and those were very comfortable while hiking with blisters that I had bandaged up at the time. But it was a smart move because on the next day, I was able to run 12 miles. It was a very difficult 12 miles, but it got done, right? I think the total time must have taken like about an hour 40 to about 2 hours. I don't remember the exact time on the watch. But it did hurt, but it did roll over very well when I dropped to Chicago, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Other highlights was around the Silverthorne area. There's a few little towns like Keystone, Dillon, Frisco. They're all surrounding this area called Lake Dillon, which not notoriously, but my family has done a full loop of that lake on their bikes. I managed to complete that, and it was the first time I did any sort of KOM, King of the Mountain-esque type biking, which I've done a lot in Zwift, but the major difference with doing it in Silverthorne versus Zwift is that you're not climbing and having a consistent 600 to 800 feet elevation like Chicago. You're at 9,000 feet and climbing. So it actually got harder to breathe as I was climbing. But there was a lot of people a lot older than me on rustier looking bikes than my road bike who were just killing it out there. It was really amazing. But then, of course, there were a few of those guys on e-bikes. And those e-bike people. I hope one day it's really rainy on that 12 to 15 degree incline at that one specific section, and I hope your e-bike breaks, and I hope you literally can't bike up that mountain because your bike's so heavy and you're so weak because you decide to go 40 miles per hour up a hill with your e-bike. I'm just kidding. That's not really what I wish upon them. A lot of e-bikes, though, was a very smart idea out there if you just wanted to cruise around. But if you wanted to have a good workout, you brought your road bike or your time trial bike, more or less. So anyways, after we left good old Colorado, I bought my phone case. As I mentioned in one of my other videos, I said I was dangerous or something along those lines, and I operate without phone cases. It's only partially true. You need a really cool phone case, otherwise you just don't buy one, in my opinion. So we got the Colorado flag, basically. So anyways, let's talk about what happened when I got back to Chicago. So first run back from Chicago, and I swear I could have probably held my breath for 30 seconds and continued running a 6 minute per mile pace. It was obviously expected, but it was also really incredible to watch the struggle and the hard work that you put in altitude and you bring it down to closer to, or not really sea level, but low enough elevation where you can start really, where the work that you put your body through in terms of learning how to work with less, and now you start giving it an abundance of, in this case, oxygen and the thin blood and whatnot. Seeing that play out on an average run, on your average route, and then just absolutely smashing it is really incredible to see. Yeah, obviously that adaptation, that altitude adaptation has kind of pushed itself away, but the point was to develop that adaptation and then jumpstart my Chicago Marathon training again. So there was a plan early on to do the Chicago Marathon training, but then they canceled it, and then I lost a little bit of morale, and we turned more to track workouts to start building my 1 mile PR, my 800 PR. And basically after that, we decided to recommit to the Chicago Marathon, and here we are, right? So just this past weekend, I ran about 15 and a half miles at 6:30 pace in the next percent, basically accomplishing what I wanted to do, and that was to get a serious distance run that was ultimately jump-started by elevation training, or elevation acclimation, in this case, Silverthorne, right? So that's good. Now we don't have to really rely on the elevation acclimation that I acquired in Silverthorne, but now we can just work off the fitness that occurred after this 15 and a half mile run, and now basically what's going on here with running up towards the 60 to 70 miles a week. So ultimately my goal of going to elevation was accomplished, is what I'm just trying to say. So the two new developments since Silverthorne in terms of where we move from here is that, one, the Chicago Marathon organization officially announced the virtual marathon, and yeah, I paid like 30 or 40 bucks to get like a t-shirt and like some finisher medallion, whatever it is, and they let me sign up for the virtual Chicago Marathon. So it's definitely official somewhere now. It's not like I'm running it for myself anymore. Now there's a real trail for it. And yeah, I guess they don't let everyone do it. They just say that if you signed up for the Chicago Marathon, you have the ability to do the virtual. So that's how that's basically working out, which is cool. I'm good with that. Now we just got to figure out the route. And again, I think I mentioned this early on in this particular series. I want to run the actual Chicago Marathon route, but there's a lot of logistical issues with it. A lot of traffic lights, a lot of one-ways that can make it kind of spotty, kind of sketchy. But there is ways where we can adapt, or where we can like slightly modify the route just to avoid as many lights as possible. And we're going to try to maybe utilize the Lakeshore Trail in sections. We'll see how it goes, right? Still a big thing in planning. But I do have one route which I really don't want to do that I've ran a marathon once on before. Very minimal traffic lights on it. It goes to a forest preserve. I would rather not if I don't have to. And then the second big thing is 2 weeks before the virtual Chicago Marathon, I'm taking another vacation. And I'm going to try to take it to somewhere with a little bit of elevation. Thinking maybe Arizona, maybe Salt Lake City. Again, just another family friend vacation kind of thing. Because obviously, when you work from home and you're bored and you have the ability to travel, the smartest thing you can do is work from a city that you don't come from. So in this particular instance, when I was in Silverthorne, I was also on the clock working whenever I was required to work. And I worked all my training schedules, activities around my work schedule. And because I had the ability to work remotely as a cybersecurity analyst, that's basically what we did. So you should take advantage of that if you have the opportunity to do so. Flights are very cheap. You should definitely do that. I'm sure like property rentals are cheap too. Hotels are cheap. Make it happen, you know. So yeah, that's kind of where we're going now with it. And then of course the plan is to do 2 to 3 20-milers within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Obviously, because we're jump started on the 15 miler, I don't need to do like a 17 or 18 mile run. We'll just go straight for the 20. We'll make it happen. I figured out the logistics of how to do it without the use of my gym, without the use of extra pockets on my shorts and stuff like that. So there's a plan. I know how to do it. It's just a case of doing it. So yeah, that's where we are. So long story short, Big Sky went well. Silverthorne went extremely well, despite the circumstances with blisters and stuff like that. The Chicago Marathon training is back on target, if not a lot better than I expected. And we just continue moving from here until taper week. And then from taper week, we go to elevation. And hopefully get that elevation acclimation back just for that little short window before the Chicago Marathon. So we have just that little bit of elevation acclimation. And then we just drop back down to Chicago and do our thing, right? So yeah, not a whole lot of new clips in this video, but I do have some old footage just kind of summarizing the trip, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. If you did enjoy the video, definitely like it, subscribe to the YouTube channel as we get closer and closer to the virtual Chicago Marathon, and we get closer to attempting to break the 3-hour marathon. I don't know if the Boston Marathon organization recognizes virtual marathons as official. It'd be pretty sick if they do, especially if I can run the exact Chicago Marathon route, because then the only thing you don't have to prove in terms of my time is a chip time. But if you were to live stream the entire thing from start to finish, I wonder if it would be recognized as legitimate. Let me know in the comments if you guys think so. I'm leaning towards probably a no on that one. But given the circumstances, why wouldn't they allow people to qualify for Boston if they can prove that the virtual race was in fact legitimate? We'll see. So yeah, that's all I've got for now. Stay tuned for more training updates and other videos that may come around, some other shoe reviews that'll be swinging my way because we do have some things coming in. And yeah, hopefully your marathon training is going well if you are doing so, or whatever virtual race you've got your way. And yeah, I'll see you guys real soon.